Hello, Internet, and thank you for joining me today. I recently watched The Acolyte, episode 6, and it was complete garbage. First of all, I just want to say that I'm sorry for not getting a video out sooner. I recorded a whole video about the first 5 episodes of this, but it's very long, so I haven't finished editing it yet. A couple things to address about that video is that, first of all, I'm going to get this video out first because I'm going to try to do this in as few of takes as I can. And once I get this out, I'll probably finish editing the first one, so it'll be kind of out of order, but that's fine. In that video, though, I never address the fact that the one Jedi guy that he gets murdered in the 5th episode. He's somewhat important, I guess. If you haven't watched the show, you have no idea who I'm talking about, but if you've watched the show, he's the most fuckboy one, and yeah, he dies. No one cares. But also, I call out the one Padawan chick with the white face and the horns on her face as the best, and she dies too, and I was kind of sad to see her go because I didn't want her to die. But anyway, I also wanted to call out that I didn't say anything about May cutting her hair in episode 5. That was really stupid, and it just kind of confirmed to me that what I said in that previous video was that they aren't doing enough to make May and Osha their own characters, and that just really sets it in because the only thing she did was take off a wig, is essentially what it is. But that's really it. That's all that I feel like I missed majorly, unless you wanted to tell me down in the comments of this video or that video after you listen to it. So if you want my 10-second review of this episode, it's really slow. All they do is basically talk at each other. There is no action and there's no story development. We begin this episode exactly where we end this episode. No characters develop and no plot points develop. So it just makes for a really boring episode. And this is probably the worst the script has been. So if you just want to join in to try to catch up with what everyone's talking about on the internet, don't start with episode 6. Start with episode 5 and then don't watch anything else, because episode 5 is where this show is going to peak. Calling it here. I'm recording this. Hopefully I'll get it out today, but I'm recording this at a time where I have not seen episode 7 or 8. They're not out yet. So I'm just going to say it now. 7 and 8, they're not going to be better than 5. And 5 wasn't even mediocre. It didn't even rise to a 5 out of 10 for me. It maybe raised it up to like a 4 out of 10. So if you want to know my thoughts about the whole series on it, wait for that longer video to be edited and come out. But yeah, we're 2/3 of the way through this show, and it's just going nowhere. It's just been spinning its wheels since episode 1. But if you wanted a spoiler-free review, those are just my generic thoughts, and everything from here on is going to be spoilerific. So stay tuned for that if you're interested. So I want to start the largest part of this review by briefly just running down the episode here. And we actually start the episode fairly well with Jedi Master Squid Game giving a fantastic performance. I mean, if you think about it, the guy as a character has literally just watched his Padawan die, a fellow Jedi Knight, and a whole bunch of other people that he probably knew and had an entire relationship with. All of these individuals, they're all dead now, right in front of him. He's lost a ton of people he cared about, and that's probably very traumatic. And he does a great job at conveying these emotions. The actor does. and he just proves how horrible everyone else is around him, because this is the only time I have felt something throughout this entire series other than a kind of numb boredom. But we immediately follow that by him doing something very stupid and not knowing that he's being parent trapped. Yes, we are just doing a parent trap story where Osha and May have switched spots, and this Jedi Master of the Force that is, super powerful and super in tune or whatever, supposed to be one of the best, doesn't know that they've switched places. That seems amazingly stupid. It makes his character look stupid. And, I've heard people pointing out that a lot of these plot points were brought up in the prequels, and to them, I just want to state again, yes, it was stupid then, and it's stupid now. It's just that you don't have a better story to back up that stupid detail. Anyway, we move right along, and the little woodchuck thing that came in the previous episode 5, it's back, and it's got the droid that I was super annoyed with throughout this entire series. And yeah, them in one scene together, it's just horrible. I hate it. It's awful. It's probably the best the CGI is going to look throughout this whole series, but they are both just annoying as hell, and I won't stand for it. Then we immediately cut to a scene where Smilo Ren is I guess trying to take a bath or shower off or something. He takes a dip in the pond, and him and Osha are just sitting there talking, which he knows immediately that it's Osha, because I guess he's supposed to be the good guy here. They keep trying to make the Jedi bad, but more on that a little bit later. So Smilo Ren they just kind of have a chit chat while he's naked, which this is like the second time in this series where a dude has just been naked for little to no reason. But anyway, they just chit chat and we move right along. Like the scene just ends, which this whole episode is just scene happens, they run out of script, and then the scene ends. That's the whole episode. Anyway, moving along here, the CGI ships that they show are just absolutely awful. Like Battlestar Galactica came out in like 2003, and its CGI was on par, if not better than this. This is awful looking. I cannot describe it with words. You just have to look at the screen. But once we get back onto the ship, we basically just have another talky talk scene and we move on. And then we jump back to Osha and Smilo Ren talking to each other by some rocks on a beach. It's super boring, and they start trying to talk about, things, but I'll get to this slightly later and expand on it a little bit later. But people in this whole show, throughout the whole show, but in this episode specifically, they talk about it and say, let me tell you something, and then they don't tell you the thing that they are going to tell you. It really speaks to how poorly this script is written, and this scene exemplifies it perfectly. Again, I'll expand on this scene in particular, but the whole script thing I'll get into later. But we end that scene on the beach by the rocks, whatever, and we go back to the ship with May and Squid Game. And apparently May's motivations have just switched back. They've reset to factory defaults, which she actually does to that little droid thing later in this episode. But she just basically, they're trying to build tension, but to build tension, I have to be invested in anything, and I'm not. So we just have the scene end, and we jump back to Osha and Smilo Ren, and they're just talking in a cave. and they just talk about the same thing that they talked about in their previous scene, where they are hinting at what they want to talk about, but they're not talking about it. They essentially lead you to a cliffhanger in the same episode where they're supposed to explain it and then just never explain it. And that leads to a scene where they move out to, like, for lack of a better term, it's a balcony to Smilo Ren's cave, where they keep insisting that Osha is a Jedi or was a Jedi. And they never said that. They said that she was a Padawan, but then that she left before she ever became a Jedi. Like, they make that very clear in, I think, like episode 1 or 2. And then they're just completely going back on it in this episode. I'll expand on it a little bit more later, but she just gets angry and shows that she has the potential to go to the dark side, which I guess is supposed to be a big revelation for this series, but that's not a revelation because everyone has a bad day, you know? Everyone gets angry. It's just a matter of, like, what do you do with that anger? But aside from that, we just end the scene and we jump back to the green chick, and she has a slightly comedic scene where she's supposed to be, like, sick with, you know, jumping in hyperspace or whatever. And that's just nonsense. It's never been established that that's a thing. But we have that brief scene, which basically just sets up that she's going to come out and look for Jedi Master Squid Game because he tried to send a message, but then because the plot demanded it, the ship, for no reason, I don't remember if it took damage or not, but that ship that Squid Game is on, it has no long-range communications, so he tried to send a message. They got some message, but not all of it, and then she decides to go herself to pick them up. I guess, but whatever. She's going out now. And the Badger dude tries to fight May in this next scene because we just hard cut and it's the Badger Man versus May, and he, like, bites her foot or kicks her foot or something and then just leaves. Like, she just lets him walk away. She doesn't fight back or anything. He just leaves. Like, they're trying to create comedic moments in this, but they have no idea how to set these up and pay them off. So it's literally this soundtrack that's trying to insist that what I'm watching is funny or, you know, goofy, charming, something along these lines. But none of that is happening because these are the most unlikable characters, with the exception of Squid Game. But that scene happens, but then something actually funny happens in the next scene because the green chick shows up in her ship right after Squid Game's ship jumps to hyperspace. So they literally just miss each other, but the CGI is so bad and it looks so, I think it's an insult to say it looks like a PS1 game. It's awful looking. But when that hard cuts away from our not even PS1 cutscene to the forest where the green chick is with some red shirt looking dude, and they're sitting there talking about, oh, blah, 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 it could be this, it could be that. The problem with this scene is that we already know what happened. So we, the audience members watching these two characters figure out what we already know, is probably one of the most boring things. And it's the exact way you don't want to try to set up your mystery, your murder mystery, your cop drama. But in this scene, the green chick pulls out her lightsaber and it turns into a whip thing, and she, like, whips a bug in half that was established in the previous episode, And I get the feeling a lot of people are going to complain about this whip. I just want to state now, for the record, I don't even mind the whip. There's so much other dumb stuff in this episode that I don't care. I mean, it's stupid bullshit, but it's stupid bullshit that I can overlook. But once that scene is over with the red shirt and the green chick, we go to Osha and Smiler Ren talking again in a cave about this helmet. And this helmet, no matter what they do in episode 7 and 8, they're not going to redeem this helmet. It's going to be a huge plot hole forever. That this thing, they explain that it's supposed to be like some sensory deprivation. Like, he says that it's just you and the Force. And that's an interesting idea. But the fact that he's interacting with his environment every other time he's had this helmet on leads me to believe that this is all stupid. Like, whenever you get like the Hong Kong action kung fu movie that's super cheesy, and you get somebody that like puts a blindfold on, or, you know, puts something on to try to feel something with the Force, it's always about actions. You know, like when Luke puts on his blast shield on his helmet in A New Hope, it's all about like what the little droid that's shooting him is going to do. He's predicting its movements, its actions. He's not literally seeing it. He's not literally hearing it. So this helmet, the fact that he can have a conversation with somebody inside of it, and it modulates his voice and all of this, it makes it look really poorly thought out and stupid. Like, I can suspend my disbelief for a lot, but this is going to be one of those things that just endlessly bugs me for the rest of time. But once they're done talking about that, we jump cut over to Osha or the green chick and that nobody having a conversation in the woods about like what could have happened. This is again just basically hashing out what we already know. They're trying to piece together the episode that we just saw, really. And I have to stop this here. I'm trying not to get lost in tangents because I wanted to make this rundown brief because it's not the talking points I wanted to make. But he says a line that is the stupidest line in this episode. If it weren't for the villain speech in the first episode, this would be the dumbest line. He says his skills are erratic. What he means to say is his movements were erratic, because he's basically recreating it in his mind like, oh, hey, this person was struck down and then this person was killed and then they had a fight here. You know, it's kind of like what Aragorn did when he was trying to track down Merry and Pippin. They were like, oh, there was a struggle here, and then they ran, and then they were stopped, and then blah, blah, blah. But in the Acolyte here, with this nobody talking about it, he says his skills were erratic. And skills, like, is he talking about the skills that he learned, that they're unconventional? Or it hits the ear all kinds of wrong. Technically, the sentence is not wrong from a grammar standpoint, but it's just the clunkiest way you could say something. And it just really goes into, you know, this mindset that the writers, the director, the editors, none of them cared. And the way he says it too is he can't even believe he's saying it, the actor. And no one thought to themselves, hey, maybe we should do another take. Maybe we should reword this a little bit. No one thought about it because no one cared. But we're almost done with the episode, so we'll move past the worst line to the second worst line in this episode. And that's where Jedi Master Squid Game says that, well, he discovers that Osha and May switch places. He's like, oh, I'm in a Parent Trap movie. So he, goes ahead and says, oh, well, I'm just going to capture May then. And he's got her strapped down to this table. And he says, for 16 years, I've thought about what I would say to you. And that's super dumb because in the first episode, he said he wanted, or he said he knew that May had died. He had watched her die. And I mean, we learned in episode 3 that he really didn't watch it. He just watched her fall, which is, the Disney version of dying. But it's such stupid bullshit that he would say that I've thought about what I would say to you. You thought for 16 years what you would say to a dead girl? And what are you going to say? Like, why didn't you say it throughout this whole episode? Why did your plot line have to take up 8 minutes of a 20-minute episode and you didn't say all these things? It's because we have to expand this out into 8 episodes and the pacing is just awful. But anyway, that's not as dumb as the erratic skills line, but it's pretty up there. And then we end the episode off with someone ironically named Osha violating worker safety by using a device that's not approved. And she puts the helmet on so that she can become one with the Force or something. I'm sure that's happening in the next episode. She's going to be like, oh, well, I'm super strong with the Force, even though, I didn't finish training and I wasn't really a Jedi, even though I've been saying this whole episode I'm a Jedi. But yeah, it's so predictable and poorly thought out is really what it comes down to. And nothing exemplifies that better than that scene that I was describing earlier where Osha and Smiler Ren are on the rocks. They're like on this beach with all these rocks. I mean, the dialogue is just so poorly scripted because he says to her at one point that she could go out and swim to this ship that he's got, that I don't know how he got her unconscious across this river, but he says, oh, hey, you could swim to that ship and leave, or you could wait for the tide to go out. But he says it like, oh, hey, these are 2 equally valid options, which doesn't fit with his character. Like, why would he take her here if he's just going to let her leave? But then he immediately follows that because she doesn't say anything to that. She doesn't respond to that. And he immediately says, oh, are you hungry? Like, okay, she's going to leave. She wants to leave right now. Like, you're acknowledging that she wants to leave, but then you're trying to say, oh, hey, come have dinner with me. That's nonsense. That's so stupid. It's just stuff like that. Like, no one cared to proofread this. No one cared to look at this objectively and say, maybe we reword some of this. I don't know. But I mean, everything is just wrong with this. It'd be a great thing to show a film student. That way you can just point out where everything is really wrong with it. I feel like they're trying to set some kind of mood between these two so that they can develop as characters. And they did it on this beach, and they've got all this ambient noise. And I watched this scene a couple of times just so I could take some significant notes on it. The ambient noise is present with the music at first, and then the music fades out, and they keep this ambient noise of waves flowing while the characters are talking to each other and exchanging this horribly clunky dialogue. But the thing is, they didn't mix it well on the audio side, like whatever audio engineer was editing this. The noise is actually drowning out a lot of their words that they are saying, and so it's making it kind of garbled. And in addition to that, it seems like they only did one take which is fine for my YouTube video here. I'm stumbling over my words. But this is like a professional Hollywood production with millions of dollars behind it. And I'm some idiot in a office space with a microphone and a cell phone. And I'm, doing one takes, but they don't do multiple takes. And it's very apparent because it seems like they actually went out to record this on location. And the actors are going over what is basically uneven terrain. They're physically walking in this space. And so they're kind of getting tired because they're having to walk and move around, and they're getting tired. So they are, having to catch their breath while they're walking. And you can just tell that they are trying to force out these lines of dialogue as quickly as possible. That way they can just take a breath. Just like that, like we are getting this line out so that then I can, breathe, and they're not speaking naturally to each other, and they're artificially raising their voice to try to get it just above the noise of the ocean and the wind and all this. But it's all mixed so horribly that they're not able to hit their final consonants, and it comes out very muddled. The next thing that you will, see is that, or the next thing I noticed rather, is that we went from a scene that immediately was before this for these two characters, where he was having a bath essentially in a lake area, and now they're walking by the ocean. So like, you're having to put yourself in this setting where you're trying to immerse yourself, and you're like, wait, why did he pass the ocean to go to a pond to basically just go for a brief swim and then walk by all this prime swimming area? Like, it doesn't make sense, and it's really stupid. Which this whole setting where they're supposed to be having this conversation on this beach is even more stupid when you think about like the fact that this entire area looks very remote. They have done several establishing shots to try to convince us that this is, a remote island. There's no one else there. They are the only two people on this planet that are doing anything, and specifically this island. But the path that they're walking on, it looks like the production went and made them a small path to walk on. So that really takes away from this whole like remote island vibe, because why would this remote island have a walking path which has like, raked gravel to make it more even, to, make it more pleasant to walk on this specific stretch of beach and nowhere else? It's just so stupid to, whenever you stop and just look at this production and what it's doing, it speaks to the lack of care, the lack of, passion behind this project, that they would have these little details just all out of place. To revisit the dialogue part, I mean, all the dialogue in this scene is very out of place for what is part 6 of an 8-part story. What I really feel like has happened here is that they really think that they're getting a season 2. So they went ahead and wrote all of this dialogue super, super vague so that they could essentially fill in a lot of the story gaps that are popping up in this season with season 2. And that's a bold strategy, because Disney has been axing these things left and right. This first season supposedly cost Disney like 180 million. Yeah, and to top that off, it's the worst rated piece of Star Wars media that I know of. It even beat out the holiday special. I don't know if it's quite that bad, honestly, but it really is doing itself no favors by trying to essentially tease this out for 2 or 3 seasons. Because it makes for this experience very disjointed, very unfinished feeling. It makes it seem like, again, they just don't care. We should be talking about, we should be wrapping up some loose ends from the second act and moving into a third act within this story, and we're not, because they don't understand how to pace themselves. And I don't know if this is studio interference. I don't know if this is a Leslie Headland thing, but it just seems bad all the way around, no matter how you slice it. And the final thing I want to point out is just that the editing really sucks. First of all, it's all just shot, reverse shot, super boring stuff in this particular scene, which is the majority of this show is just shot, reverse shot. The only standout part that I could point to where we have good editing is in episode 5, where it seems like they finally found somebody that can do choreography, and they actually let some stunt people do something, which is getting more and more rare in Hollywood, if I'm being specific here. But we have all these awkward cuts, and I don't know if it's to like cut around dialogue. I don't know if it's to cut around flubbed lines, outtakes, something like that. But it really feels amateur. Like this is Leslie Headland's first production, which it's not. So we shouldn't be seeing this, but here we are. But this, I keep saying it over and over again, that they don't care about this show. But there's just so many little inconsistencies with character motivations, and I'm moving away from that scene now to talk about the series, kind of a broader piece. And in this episode specifically, we have a whole new motivation for Osha. I mentioned kind of offhandedly that Osha is now saying that she was a Jedi, and that she had this whole found family thing with the Jedi, and that she felt accepted, and then they rejected her or left her, and they're not able to love her the way she needs to be loved, or something along these lines. It's something like that, and it's super stupid because none of this was established before this. It literally is coming out of nowhere. I mean, I'm not complaining about larger lore implications. I'm not complaining about this fitting into a Star Wars universe. I am complaining about, from episode 1 to episode 6, the characters not remaining themselves. They don't have a sense of self because we can't establish them ever. I mean, in, I think it was episode 4, we had, May just completely do a 180. All of a sudden, she doesn't want to be a Sith anymore. She suddenly wants to turn herself into the Jedi, and just because they're good guys, they're gonna be okay with her murdering people and stuff, which, whatever. But that just completely subverts her character. It completely flips her character on its head, and it's at like a whiplash pace. There's no build up to that, and we have kind of the same thing here, where last episode she had like literally one fight with her sister for 10 seconds in the episode, and then now she is completely flipped back around. Now she's going to kill all the Jedi that hurt her or something, and it's not really clear to us, again, in this 6th of 8 episodes, why the Smilo Ren, That's what I've been calling him. Why Smilo Ren wanted to kill those specific Jedi, those 4 Jedi, I think is what the total was. But why he wanted to kill them, and May's whole crusade to now kill Squid Game again, it does not make sense why she wants to do that out of nowhere again. It's like she got a factory reset. And it doesn't make sense because throughout the first whole third-ish of this episode, Osha wants to kill Smilo Ren. I don't know why she wants to do that. I mean, I guess maybe you could have the argument that he brainwashed her sister, quote unquote. But then why would she just talk to him? Like at one point, she's holding his lightsaber. He's getting out of the water. He's naked, of course, because, you know, it's okay when it's a naked dude. But, you know, if we have any sexy women on screen, that's awful. But he's sitting there naked, and she's pointing it at him like it's a gun. Like, you realize it's a sword. Like, you were in Jedi training. You've seen lightsabers. You know what this is going to do. But she never ignites it, I guess, because CG is expensive or something, or they'd have to do something else with the scene. But she never ignites the lightsaber, so she's just sitting there with it until she essentially gets mad and has to hold the lightsaber very specifically so she doesn't cut off this dude's head. But she grabs him at one point by the collar and like shoves him into a wall. But it's just very clunky looking because of the way she had to grab him, because she's got the lightsaber in her hand. But it's so out of character for her because we have not built up to this. We have not foreshadowed that she has like any pure hatred in her heart. And it's really hard to separate Osha and May. Like, aside from, you know, them being played by the exact same actor, they just act the same. Like, they both do goofy things. It's not like one likes dirt bikes and the other likes, you know, tabletop RPGs. We don't have this kind of dichotomy between the two. So it's really hard to like pick them out of each other. My overall thoughts on the show up to this point are that it's really exhausting. If not for my own personal vendetta to essentially give this show a shot, because I said in the video where I talk about episodes 1 through 5 that I wanted to see, you know, a story that was set outside of that whole Skywalker saga that they tried to do with Disney. I wanted to see something set outside of that. And so I'm having to give this a chance because I said I wanted that. But honestly, it really just goes back to no one cares about the series. No one wants to see this succeed, essentially. Everyone's just going through the motions to collect a paycheck, it feels like, and a really big paycheck if the numbers are to be believed. But that kind of does leave the question of, where do I, as a Star Wars fan, want Star Wars to go? And honestly, the only thing I would give a shot at this juncture, at this point in time, actually there's two. The first one would be Andor, like a second season of Andor. I'd probably watch that. I like Andor. But the only other thing I would give a shot is if they did something like New Republic-ish. And I want them to set it like hundreds of years after episode 9. I want it to be so far removed from our established canon that you can safely ignore most, if not all, of the established characters. Like, I don't want to see Yoda. I don't want to see the Mandalorian. I don't want to see Rey. I don't want to see Poe. Don't want to see anybody from the prequels. I want to see a whole new set of characters set in a galaxy far, far away. And I think that would be probably the best, because it's very clear that, you know, established canon is not going to be where any of these showrunners that Disney would hire want to be. Like, they don't want to mess with, you know, this super serious timeline that people have in their heads. So making a prequel is not going to help them. It's going to be really tough for them to overcome that. And I think if they set it essentially in the future, where, you know, you might be able to make some references like, oh, hey, these are the legends we based our society off of, you know, the story of Luke Skywalker blowing up the Death Star and blah, 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 you know, and maybe have some stormtroopers or something, like maybe some remnants of the Empire can exist, but, you know, nothing to do with resistance or rebels or anything like that. Like, let's just, you know, do a Jedi story where I don't even want to suggest what the actual story would be, but you don't have to make it super like high stakes or anything. Just have it be a simple story well told, you know, like have it so that you don't have to refer back to this canon all the time. Make your own canon, make something new that someone is passionate about, and that's really going to be an important part. Like, it seems like Kathleen Kennedy is going out and saying, oh, hey, I want to give this person an opportunity, like this actor or this showrunner or this director or whatever, and she wants to give these people their shot in Hollywood or whatever with Star Wars, and it's just not working. I mean, she's alienating her fan base. She's destroying what was once fantastic, because none of these people want to make Star Wars stuff. They all want to make, you know, some other niche product, which if that's what they want to do, cool. And if Kathleen Kennedy wants to use her influence in Hollywood to make that happen, I don't see why she can't outside of Star Wars. Like, why does it have to be a Star Wars thing? Because none of these people want to work on a Star Wars show, clearly. But I don't know what's going on over there. I'm just some idiot over here. And at this point, I'm done talking about this episode. And if you want to let me know how wrong I am down in the comments, that'd be great. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked and subscribed, or dislike and subscribe. One or the other. Thank you.